Hi guys, welcome back to Gearjunkies TV and a new video. Today we're going to take a look at the Finegear Dust Collector effect unit. The Dust Collector is a standalone multi-effect box with a vintage take on the effects produced. It has two tape saturators, a spring reverb, an analog delay and a phaser. And there are a few nice tricks built in as well. We're going to check them out here. But first, you can stay informed about all our videos by subscribing to our channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video and you can hit the bell button to get notifications when there's something new on our channel. I like the look and feel of the Dust Collector. It's built in Romania and it has this vintage metal box touch all over. The case is big, square and metal, and all the knobs are nice and big and well laid out. So let's go over the features. On the left we find two LFO modules. They both have sine, triangle and square waveforms, LFO CV input, speed and CV depth controls, two outputs and one inverted output for each LFO. They are internally routed to several of the effect parameters here. But you can also use 3.5mm patch cables to connect them to various parts of the effect system here. Then next are two tape saturators. So what do they do? They sort of create a vintage effect, also produced by old tapes when things were recorded onto them in the past. This results in some kind of compression, saturation and even some level of distortion when you put a signal through it. They have a saturation type switch for 5 different types of saturation. There's a volume knob and there's a bypass switch. Then there's a spring reverb. You can see it here. This is a 3-spring reverb that's mounted inside the casing here, and it has some special features. There are VCAs for the input and output, which means you can run a signal through it and vary the amount of reverb that is applied to it by using CV in or out. Then there's a tone dial, so with the highest setting you get the highest tones, but as with each spring reverb there's some noise involved, so if you choose to have a more darker sound, then you can dial this back. And there's a mix button, so you can mix the dry signal with the reverb signal. Also nice is that normally this plexiglass casing is attached here, but you can take it off and you can touch the spring with your hands to create some kind of nice thunderstorm effects. Then there is an analog delay. It ranges from 3 milliseconds to 650 milliseconds. It has a separate feedback knob and there's a madness button. When you press this, instant feedback is applied to the signal. There's a CV input as well. In this case, this affects the time of the delay. And finally, there's a mix button again, so you can mix the dry signal with the delayed signal. Then finally, the effect here is a phaser. It can use one or both of the LFOs for its feedback and depth, and you can dial in by hand as well. Then you can choose the source for the depth and feedback parameters here. There's a CV attenuator, and again there's a mix button, so you can mix the dry signal with the affected signal. On the right here is a special hole, because this plate is normally connected to it, but you can screw it off, and in here are 3 light sensitive diodes. So you can use a thing like a flashlight to beam here on the right inside this hole onto the light emitting diodes. And then you get some extra effects applied to the phaser, which we will hear when we do the demo. So how do you hook up the dust collector? On the back are all the connections, and they are all large 6.3mm jacks. All the separate modules have in and outs, so if you want to use them in series, you have to connect them using jack patch cables. So let's check each section with a sound. I've connected the dust collector to my Eurorack modular system, which I mostly use for drums, percussion and techno bass lines. And you would need several mini jack to jack cables to be able to use the dust collector with such a system. I've routed a kick and a snare through the two tape saturators. They have 5 settings. So let's listen to each setting, what happens to the amount of compression, saturation and distortion. First, let's check out the kick. I'll set it in bypass for now and start with the kick. So as you can hear, the output level slightly decreases when you add more effect. This can be a bit annoying and you have to compensate it for further on in the audio chain, because when you would add gain before the input, it would just distort more. And it is sometimes hard to hear any effect. The tape circuit works best with high amplitude sounds with fast transients like kicks or snares. I'll check out the snare on the second tape emulation circuit. So for the spring, I wanted to route several sounds through this. I have a small mixer in the modular that has 2 aux sends and returns. So I connected the spring to aux send 1 and run several sounds this way through it and wrote it back into the mixer. Let me show you how that sounds with the snare. By the way, I've set the mix here to full wet because the send and return circuit will provide me to be able to mix it with the dry signal. Let's find out how that sounds. Tone. As you can hear, it gets a bit darker. And let's see what happens when I touch this. Also, I've clocked an LFO from the modular system. This comes in through this cable, and I will attach this to the CV in of the spring reverb to see what happens. And as you can hear, it now produces several louder and less louder effects of the spring by using the VCA CV control. So I did the same with the delay, also routed through the mixer with an aux send and return, and let's run a signal through it to see what it sounds like. I've set the timing more or less to follow the tempo, and I can use the feedback to have more delays. brightness button. Finally, I patched some hi-hats through the phaser, and let's listen to how that sounds. So with all this together mixed, we get a drum track where all the effects are being provided by the dust collector. So let's check out how everything sounds together. Well, with all the sounds grouped together, I did a small demo last night, and just for you to watch and listen to what the dust collector can do when you play it live, I've added this video here, but you can skip it, of course, if you don't like it. what do we think of the dust collector? Well, first of all, it's a very nice idea to introduce vintage analog effects grouped together in a single box. It gives your sounds a very different feel when you run them through this set of things. All effects sound very nice, but for the tape saturations to have any effect, you need a strong signal. It's great that they have added the LFO circuits and made them patchable, so you can easily adjust the settings on the machine this way. As for the quality, the spring reverb sounds nice, but a little short. This cannot be avoided due to the total length of it. And the hands-on touching can create unpredictable loudness that you have to be careful with. The VCA control over it takes a bit of practice to get it right, but once you have set it up properly, you can have a very dynamic feel to the spring sounds. The delay line is cool, but the feedback distorts easily, so again, you have to be careful with that. It also takes a bit of fiddling to get the tempo sorted, as there is no way to control the sync of it via CV. Finally, the phaser sounds really nice and lush, and it's fun to use live by using the flashlight. Make sure not to forget that, or you can use your mobile phone, of course, to add some extra live effects. Overall, besides that you need special cables in order to use it with the Eurorack system, it offers 3 nice vintage effects in a box for a reasonable price. And in addition, you can use the tape saturations for some extra beefy sounds in your percussion. You could get all of those in terms of vintage pedals or desktop gear, but it might have some issues due to the age and level problems, and they will not be grouped together so easily as the dust collector. So if you need a vintage effect for your setup, go check it out. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to see all our videos. See you next time.